Hello, 8th grade. This is the 11th edition of Johnny Tremain, presented by Mr. Jomek, and by 11th edition I mean the beginning of Chapter 11, titled Yankee Doodle. It begins on page 257 in the Blue Book, with a picture of Lavinia Light and her new protege, Priscilla, not Priscilla Lapham, Isana Lapham in the picture. Before we read the first part here, please consider the following questions to help guide your thoughts and reading and comprehension. The first question is this: who won the first battle? Where shall the second battle be? And number two, what tasks do Dr. Warren and Johnny have to do now that war has started? Here's part one of chapter 11, titled Yankee Doodle. So Johnny slept. It was daylight when he woke with Warren's hand upon his shoulder. Outside on Tremont Street, he could hear the clumping of army boots. A sergeant was swearing at his men. The soldiers were paraded so close to the house, which stood flush with the sidewalkless street, that Johnny at first thought they must be in the room. Dr. Warren dared speak no louder than a whisper. "I'm going now. Something's happened?" "Yes." He motioned Johnny to follow him into the kitchen. This room was on the back of the house. They could talk without danger of being overheard by the troops in the street. Dr. Warren had on the same clothes as the day before. He had not been to bed, but now his hat was on his head. His black bag of instruments and medicines was packed and on the table. Silently he put milk, bread, herrings beside it, and gestured to Johnny to join him. "Where did it begin?" asked Johnny. "Lexington." "Who won?" "They did. 700 against 70. It wasn't a battle. It was just target practice. For them, some of our men were killed, and the British huzzaed and took the road to Concord." "And did they get our supplies there?" "I don't know. Paul Revere sent for me just after the firing on the Lexington Green." The young man's usually fresh-colored face was haggard. He knew the seriousness of this day for himself and for his country. "But everywhere the alarm is spreading. Men are grabbing their guns, marching for Concord. Paul Revere did get through in time last night. Billy Dawes a little later. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of Minutemen are on the march. Before the day's over, there will be real fighting, not target practice. But Gage doesn't know that it's begun. You see, long before Colonel Smith got to Lexington, just as soon as he heard that Revere had warned the country, he sent back for reinforcements, for Earl Percy. You and I, Johnny, are just about the only people in Boston who know that blood has already been shed." "Were many killed at Lexington?" "No, not many. They stood up, just a handful. The British fired on them. It was dawn." Johnny licked his lips. "Did they tell you the names of those killed?" "No." "Did Brad get out in time?" "Yes, last Sunday." The doctor's clear blue eyes darkened, but he knew what was in Johnny's mind. He picked up his bag. "I've got to get to them. They'll need surgeons. Then, too, I'd rather die fighting than on a gallows. Gage won't be so lenient now, soon as he learns war has begun." "Wait until I get my shoes on." "No, Johnny. You were to stay here today. Pick up for me any information. For instance, out of my bedroom window, I can see soldiers standing the length of the street way over up to the common. You find out what regiments are being sent, and all that. And today go about and listen to what folk are saying, and the names of any the British arrest. We know Gage expects to move his men back here tonight. If so, there will be a lot of confusion getting them into town. You watch your chance and slip out to me." "Where will I find you?" "God knows. Ask about. I will do so. They've begun it. We'll end it. But this war, may last quite a long time. They shook hands silently. Johnny knew that Warren was always conscious of the fact that he had a crippled hand. Everybody else had accepted and forgotten it. The back door closed softly. Warren was gone. Johnny went to the surgery, put on his boots and jacket. The wall clock said 8 o'clock. It was time to be about. There was no leaving by the front door. Soldiers were leaning against it. Through the curtains of the windows he could see the muskets. He noticed the facings on their uniforms. The 23rd Regiment. The narrow course of Tremont Street was filled to the brim and overflowing with the waiting, scarlet-coated men, like a river of blood. He left by the kitchen.